Welcome to the Inspired Business Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Inspire Wealth, bringing you interviews with top business professionals, empowering you to understand our current business climate and the successes and struggles other business professionals have overcome. Here's your host, Nick Bour.
Welcome to another episode of the Inspired Business Leaders Podcast. As always, this is your host, Nick Bour with Inspire Wealth. And I have with us today Nick Mattar, who I'm really excited to talk to. A lot of our listeners know that I've done a lot of in-depth research on marketing, and especially for my business, and just knowing, what works and what doesn't. So Nick is it's always interesting when I find someone has a passion for educating their expertise to other individuals. So that's the reason I'm super excited to have Nick on, because like myself, being a big believer in education in the financial space, Nick is actually he teaches some courses at Wayne State and another local college in Minnesota, specifically around digital marketing, content marketing. Nick, you actually recently wrote a textbook on content marketing, right?
Yeah, thanks for having me here today, Nick. My textbook is on content marketing. I published it, when was this? At the end of last year, and so it has been really interesting seeing the different types of institutions that have utilized it and how they've utilized it and integrated it into their various digital marketing courses. Wow,
that's exciting. Well, and again, I know I kind of made a few comments and then kind of just dove right into that. So I just want to, I thank you for being on the show as well. And I know this will definitely be some value to our listeners. So Nick, let's start. Tell us a little bit about your company and your background and your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. My background is, I guess to start, is in marketing. Even though in college I was an English major, but quickly moved into the quickly evolving marketing world. Started as a entry-level social media, email marketing person, probably almost 15 years ago now. And from there, moved my way up the ranks. Have largely worked in the Metro Detroit area. Started my own business, Digital Detroit, in 2018 after going through a lot of experiences, both good and bad, with managing, hiring, and working with younger digital marketers. And that is really what my business is all about. It's all about upskilling and developing younger digital marketing professionals because this new generation of marketers, the Gen Z, they have learned about social media and other digital marketing concepts in a way that is a little bit more textbook and academic than we have. We grew up as it evolved, and I like to say that my first social media experience was on MySpace when I was just trying to meet girls, and so that was how I would do my branding. And Now as a professional, I work with companies to upskill their younger marketing talent so that they can see the true business applications of the various marketing tasks and strategies that they do. Digital marketing has become such a vast world, and you have everything from something like this, a podcast, to blogging, to video, and there's so much content out there to consume. A lot of the younger population is really unsure of where to start, where to begin, where do they focus. And the way that I look at it, though, is what can you do to really make a difference and meet the goals of whatever the organization is that you're working for. And I like to give them more of an experiential training rather than just kind of a traditional textbook education. I save that for the class that I teach, although in my class I do try to blend those two together as well. So that's a little bit about my company. It's been, I'm going on year 5 here, and it's been really interesting seeing the different kinds of businesses in so many different industries too that have been looking for ways to not only invest in their talent, but also to make sure that they're making the best move for their business. A lot of social media people, they will come and go within a business in like 8 to 10 months. It's a quick turnover job, and companies lose money on that. You know, you spend so much time and effort on onboarding and salary, and then you end up with if you have a 3-month gap without a person in a social media position every 18 months, that can be taxing on the business, on the brand, and really on the bottom line when it gets down to it.
For sure. Yeah, no, I think that's that's very important for small to mid-sized businesses in any field is the attracting the right talent, growing the right talent, and retaining the right talent. So, I mean, as you said, I think in any industry, I've heard more and more over the last 4 or 5 years that, attracting the right talent, especially the people that are they're willing to work, they're willing to do what they need to do, but also to also look at going above and beyond to help the business, because in turn it helps them as well.
Yeah, and I learned too pretty early on when in my management time, I was a director of marketing for a while before I started my own business, and I learned pretty quickly that a bad hire can have lasting negative effects, not just on the team, but even on the larger business. It can be really bad, but on the flip side, the right hire, or at least the right kind of training for the appropriate individual, that can have a lasting positive impact for not just the marketing director, like who it was myself, but also for everybody around that position. And it is interesting seeing how when you have a marketing team, whether it's 1 or 2 people or even 15 or 16 people, that everybody has to work together in such a way where if one person struggles, the others can pick them up. But at the same time, if one person is really struggling, that can have really a ripple effect through the rest of the organization.
Yeah, no, there's no question on that. I mean, I think all of us have seen that in one form or another, whether it's through your own business or whether it's through a business that you work within. So I think that's such an important point. So Nick, tell me a little bit about, you're obviously, you wrote a textbook on content marketing. You're like me as far as you are big in education and not just a lot of these digital marketing companies out there, especially whether they're experts in Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, it seems that they're always big on, let us do that for you. Whereas you seem to be a lot more interested in actually showing the business how to do it, which is always interesting because, some people would say that, you're kind of making yourself expendable at some point to your clients that you are consulting with for their business, is that, hey, if you're showing their internal marketing person how to do it, you're making yourself expendable. So it's interesting that you really do believe in education like I do. So tell me, how does that look in your world or in your scenario? I mean, you're big on education. You obviously teach a couple courses. Tell us a little bit about your interactions with business owners and what type of things you do from a content marketing and from that perspective that you feel that you've been able to help make a difference for their businesses.
It's funny that you bring up the point of being expendable, because you are correct in that I wouldn't say there's necessarily a limit. I would say education is probably unlimited in terms of what somebody can learn about any one topic. However, I have found that the businesses that I have seen the most success with in terms of the training of their employees, those are the ones that keep coming back to me for more. And it has been really, really good to see that because, I mean, let's face it, one example, I trained somebody in this must have been early 2020, social media person. She did really, really well, and then immediately left the company once her training ended. So that was I looked at that as kind of a fail for myself. But then, the company was probably not pleased about that. But then on the flip side, I've done with a couple of organizations, locally especially, that I have trained some of their digital marketing people, and I've had several engagements with them where I've worked with many individuals, and generally it's not the same position, but inevitably, there is going to be turnover eventually. It's hard to expect people to stay in a single digital marketing position for their entire careers. However, I see it as something where if I could work, but I look at the customer life cycle essentially as I could work with a business with an entry-level digital marketing person, whatever their position is, say social media, for example, bring them up to speed on various things that the company wants, right? Whether it's just posting content or researching or creating content that will convert and promote on social. But then from there, they're going, if they're successful, they're going to continue to grow in that position, and they will need more training as they move up the ladder. And that is what I am here for. And while I have had a couple of individuals that I've worked with at different times where I've kind of worked with them on a baseline training program, and then I worked with them on kind of that step up, it is very interesting to see the common traits that people share and that the businesses share as well. The companies that hire me to work with their marketing talent, where the relationship is the most successful, are those businesses that have a very clear vision for what the role is. And there have been some times where I've talked to a marketing director or even a business owner, and I've said, I don't know if this position is really aligned with what the organizational goals is, because if you set somebody up to fail, it's going to be hard for them to really pull through that. And there are usually the first step of my engagement with the business is to make sure that what they expect out of the marketing person I'm going to be working with is aligned with how they are growing their business or brand, what have you. And the example I always go back to is the idea of if there is a company that sells content online, maybe they have an e-commerce store and they sell T-shirts, for example. They can't hire an entry-level digital social media person to come in and expect all of them to generate all their sales.
No,
that might be a dream. That's a great aspiration, but you can't hire a 22, 23-year-old and expect them to essentially do your sales for you. That's not what a social media position is. You can market the product, and you can set it up for social media to be attributed to sales, but solely relying on that person to handle all of your online store's success is simply misplaced.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, that would literally be like me hiring, I mean, I hate to use this analogy, but it would almost be like me hiring a brand new advisor out of college, newly licensed, and go do in-person workshops or go do different marketing, whether it's via email or digital or social media, and expect that individual to be able to bring in, 70 or 80% of my revenue. Like, that's insane.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting just seeing how there are so many businesses out there that expect that from what they call entry-level marketers. I know we didn't have a chance to talk about this when we talked earlier, but I do an entry-level marketing jobs report where I just scan LinkedIn every summer, and I go through as many digital marketing entry-level jobs that are remote as possible. And I put them together into a little report, and I release my findings and the trends. And and I didn't put this in the report this year, but it was astounding how many social media positions are expected to create or are expected to lead to profit, not just revenue, but are expected to lead to so many sales that they need to make the company profitable. And of course, they don't post the salary on the job posting. Right. And of course, it's listed as entry level. And to me, that there is such a disconnect between fantasy and reality there that it's very, like, I don't even know if I would take that client on if they hired me and they're like, this is how it goes, this is what we need you to do, because I know I can't train a 22-year-old to become a salesperson, somebody whose background is in marketing, whose education is in marketing, who's expected to essentially be everything for this startup. And so that is a really core piece of my business, is assessing the landscape and essentially managing the company's expectations of these marketing people, because using social media, for example, for revenue is a really hard sell for anybody. I would even it would be hard for me to get a ton of revenue dollars from organic social media. Ads is a different story, but it is definitely a challenge there. And for me, as long as I am comfortable with the way that the organization is moving, and I'm comfortable with the management team, that is when I engage at a more in-depth level and work with them to train their marketing people. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense. I think that a lot of us, as business owners or entrepreneurs, especially when you're hiring staff, you need to have realistic expectations, not only of what you're looking for, but what experience does this person have? What are you expecting this person to do? Are you expecting this person to help grow your revenue, or are you expecting this person to do take more off your plate so that you can bring in more revenue? Like, those are two distinctly different things. And I think if you don't have a clear understanding in what you're really trying to accomplish, how can you be effective in the person you're trying to bring on and train?
Yeah, and most of the companies that I work with are more B2B, so they're not expecting the social media person to create demand. That would be great if they could, and in some companies they have that as kind of it's a nice to have, not a need to have, which is fine. At some point, social media people do need to be able to generate some leads. Absolutely. Right. But to be under this illusion that they're going to lead to, hey, you need to go out and use organic social media to land me a $50,000 client is just kind of absurd. But I also think that that's where my value comes in as essentially a business partner when it comes to the growth of the marketing team and making sure that the company has an understanding and of what is attainable, what is feasible, and what they can honestly expect. Because, yeah, sure, you might find that unicorn out there that can do what you're looking for, but those are few and far between. Right. And you do need the proper onboarding and training program. And as most businesses are these days, time is short, budget is short, and as a result, you need to be very efficient with where you are putting your, where you're spending your business dollars and the time that's being spent. A marketing director can't be spending several hours a day training their new hires. And if there's turnover and there's a new hire every 6 or 9 months, that makes it even more difficult. So that is really the efficiency that I try to drive here with Digital Detroit.
Yeah, no kidding on that. I mean, you're definitely spot on when you say, if you're having turnover every 6 to 9 months, that's making that marketing person's or that director of marketing person's job that much harder, because they're almost in that hamster wheel. Like that wheel that keeps spinning, because they have to keep replacing, finding the right person, training them, and then that person leaves. So it's,
right.
It's interesting. So, is there anything from and I know obviously it's industry-based, Nick, but is there anything from a content marketing perspective that you have either a different level of expertise in, or a different belief that, maybe this type of content marketing works better than others? Like I'm just trying to gauge kind of what you're doing, as you're training, the internal business marketing individual. Like what is more of your expertise when it comes to content marketing?
Yeah, my expertise is in the content strategy that goes into various businesses. A lot of different types of content require different levels of engagement, whether that be the resource intensiveness of it, or just the ROI that comes out of it. I've always seen blogging as a very high impact type of content where it can lead to conversions for leads or even purchases from readers. And then it's also very good for search engine optimization, assuming you know what it is that you're doing. Right. The trendy type of content over the last 5 or so years now has been video, of course. Right. But a lot of people are not getting the return that they're looking for. They have all sorts of video content, but they're not sure how best to use it. And you'll see people spend hours and hours a day developing this really rich and well-done video content, and then they get like 100 views, and their YouTube channel doesn't grow, or it's not converting anybody. It's not leading to any leads whatsoever. And I look at that as a great opportunity for the business to utilize this content in various forms. But most people just don't understand how to utilize, like they know how to create content, but they don't know how to use it to benefit their own business. And podcasting I see as kind of in between those two, where everybody wants to have a podcast. Everyone wants to start one, but then most people don't go very far. They'll do a couple of episodes. They won't see any return. They won't see anybody listening, so they'll just stop. The podcast stat that I found when I was writing the textbook was astounding, is that 75% of all podcasts don't make it more than 6 months or something like that. It is, and if you were to look at every Spotify podcast, like alphabetically, yeah. I would bet 8 out of every 10 have not published a new episode in the last year. So it is really interesting seeing how that medium has worked. But at the same time, it's also what you're looking to get out of it. And so when you sent me the little message sharing the details on this podcast, I was fascinated, because you're in the finance world, and you are doing a podcast with all sorts of business leaders. So it's really interesting just to see your own experience with it. And as a content marketing person, I would love to flip the script here and ask you how your experience has been in podcasting, and if you have seen any sort of return from it.
So I will tell you, Nick, I went into this. So I launched, ironically, you say not much past 6 months. I actually launched my podcast about 6 months ago. It was in June of this year. So I'm about 6 months in. This is episode, like I told you, like 24, 25. And I'm actually growing. And the reason I'm doing this, I went into this not expecting ROI in the first 6 to 12 months. And the reason why is because I'm utilizing this in a few different, not rationales, but I guess a few different formats in my mind. I'm doing this for networking and creating synergies with other business professionals. I'm building, an online network or a community of professionals so that we can be resources for each other, but also that there are going to be opportunities to do business together from time to time, that there's synergy there. There's real relationships that can expand and grow and help one another. So I went into this not really expecting an ROI, like I said, for that first 6 to 12 months. And Nick, I was accurate. I mean, I I haven't earned an ROI yet. I've got some things that I'm working on right now by expanding this and by doing some different things that I feel really comfortable going into next year as I'm growing this more, that I'm going to start seeing some ROI from this. But I also, I'll tell you, it's interesting. So you mentioned a couple different things that myself and my company personally have been focused on. I'll say, what's the word I want to use? Expanding or branding per se, expanding the footprint, that I really didn't count on ROI. I didn't count on getting a bunch or a big percentage return initially. Video is another one. I've been working extremely hard on building my YouTube channel for the last 9 months. Earlier this year, I started working with a YouTube channel management company, and they've done a great job. I mean, Nick, when I started, I had 2,000 subscribers. I'm approaching 8,000. So, I mean,
the fact that you had 2,000 to begin with was pretty good too.
Yeah. Yep. And I will tell you, I did a lot of different things to get to that 2,000. And now, I mean, I will say, like you kind of mentioned, a lot of people build or create a lot of content, but they don't know what to do with it. I will say I've been told I'm a content machine. Like I'm not scared of video. I'm not scared of podcasts. I'm not scared of radio. I'm not scared of any of that kind of stuff. I mean, in addition to this podcast, I also have a radio show, and I also, this is another thing, I just launched a podcast about 4 episodes ago, with a couple business professionals that I know pretty well, and it's called On Your Side, and we do it out of Waterford's Media Network. And I will tell you firsthand, like the other individuals, one is James Beejan from J. Beejan and Associates, and he is a property and casualty agency owner. He's an independent agent. And the other one is with Kevin Green from Bayshore Green Law Group. And it started with the focus of talking about no-fault laws and how that is impacting from a legal standpoint, from an insurance standpoint, and from a financial standpoint. And now it's evolving to talking about different things. I mean, our episode that we did yesterday was actually just all around how was your Thanksgiving, what do you get, what's the plan for your business next year, and that kind of stuff. So, Nick, I do so much in the media space and the video space that my intent now, I'm not going to say forever, but now, is to utilize those as a credibility builder, as a brand awareness builder, as those types of things where I don't rely on those things as ROI. Radio, I'm starting, we structure, my production team and I structure the radio show in a way where, the objective is that we're going to get some people calling in that do want our help. And I do, I will say this as well. I mean, I do also with the radio show, I do open 10 slots a week for listeners specifically to be able to take advantage and either meet with me or do a Zoom with me to do a financial review at no cost or obligation. And that's not something everyone does. I do that because, again, like you, I believe in education, and I believe that if I do a good job at helping people know, not only educate themselves, but feel like they have some confidence that they can make well-informed decisions around their investments and their retirement, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable working with someone like me because they feel like I care and I'm really trying to go that extra mile, which I am. So hopefully that gives you that perspective of me and, and Inspire Wealth and what we've been trying to do over the last 6 to 9 months. And we're continuing to evolve this every day and every month, Nick. I mean, again, going into next year, I have full faith in planning to continue video and continuing to evolve the website and continuing to grow digitally. I have plans to expand the podcast and maybe even do 2 a week versus 1 a week. And then I also have plans to continue to evolve the radio show. And again, it's growing the footprint. It's people getting to hear my name. People I want to get to a point so that when someone says, hey, did you hear the Inspire Wealth radio show last weekend? Especially in Metro Detroit, I want people to be like, oh, no, you know what? But I've heard one of my friends told me about that. And actually I've heard he's really good, all about education and just wanting to help people and be a resource. And look, Nick, we all know we've got to earn a living. We're all business owners. But at the same time, I feel like, I don't know how to word this other than if you build it, they will come. Or if you show them,
yeah. Well, and if you're providing value to people, that's one of the core tenets of the classes that I teach is you can create all the content you want, but people need to find value in it. They're not going to listen to it because Correct. It just exists. But if they find value in it and they learn something or they're inspired, which it's clear that it sounds like your content does, and hopefully this will too, this thing that we're recording, that's the thing that leads to more subscribers and views and shares and that discussion around the water cooler, or I guess now the discussion on Teams or Zoom.
Yep.
So it's really interesting just to hear about a success story such as yours, but again, rooted in people getting true value out of something because you're sharing the authentic stories from people, and you're not talking at people, you are talking with people, and that is really important because the human element is something that a lot of content lacks today, and that still time and time again proves to be the most successful.
It's interesting, and I'm gonna only say this more to you than to the audience, but I'm going to say one other thing that we're looking at expanding and doing going into next year that I feel, again, I feel very strongly about and building connections and being a resource is we're myself and my team have actually hand chosen 4 or 5 local, I'm not going to say local, charities that we want to get more involved with as a firm and as a company, as well as doing some events together, creating awareness, being able to also give back to the community a little bit more. And these are, Nick, these are charities that we, not only have personal experiences with, but we believe in, we have a passion for. That's why we hand chose them. So, that's something that's really exciting as well. And these are things that I can leverage with media. So that's also why, hey, I want to be able to, okay, you know what, today we're going to do a podcast specifically around year-end tax planning, and I want to bring on one of the charities that we do a lot of work with, and they're a great cause, and this is why we believe in them. That's the kind of stuff I want to do. Or bring someone on like that to my radio show and talk about, hey, you know what, we're going to talk about some of the good work that, I'm using an example here, that the American Heart Association does, or that the American Diabetes Association does, which, by the way, are 2 of the charities we hand chose that are some of the bigger ones. We've got a few that are a little less known that we're big believers in the Michigan and also national as well. But, I'm excited for that. And I think those are things, some businesses and some financial planning companies, they do, or they at least try to do certain things like that. But what we really want to do is kind of take it to the next level and show, at the end of the day, in what I do, I help people with their whole financial picture. I help people with everything they've worked for as they're approaching retirement. And what I want to be able to show them and portray to them, whether it's media, video, in-person workshops, no matter what it is, I want to show them and portray to them that I'm a real person, that I'm a father, that I'm a husband, that I'm a son, that, I'm a son-in-law, all of the things that people want to be able to relate to when they're saying, hey, I trust you, you have integrity, I feel you can help me, and you're saying, here's my $500,000, or here's my $250,000, or my $1 million. Help me make sure that I have a comfortable retirement and can do the things that I want to do. And it's
right.
It's no different from you being handed the keys to the marketing world in a business where you're helping them expand and grow their marketing team and train their head of marketing. It's no different. It's just you're trying to show them how they can grow their business and how they can exponentially grow their marketing team, which in turn hopefully does one of two things for you. Either A, they're going to add more staff and you're going to have more opportunities for training, or B, and hopefully it's both, but they're also going to introduce you to other businesses that they know because you provided so much value.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
So Nick, I just want to kind of wrap up. Hey, look, man, I appreciate the time. I don't usually get an opportunity in these episodes to talk about some of the things I'm doing and why I'm doing it and why it's important to me. So I actually appreciate you kind of flipping the script on me a little bit and allowing me to share some of my experiences with the podcast and how I want to grow it, and how media, I believe, I believe media and digital and video are really, even in my world, even with compliance, even with everything. Look, I've been doing this long enough to know, I know what I can and can't say, and I'm really just trying to educate and, as you said, and as we both said, add value. Because if we can, as not only an industry, but as a profession and in business in general, add value to people. People, not only you attract people to you, but people also want to reach out and say, you know what, I have someone that you need to talk to. I know this person over here, and maybe they don't need your services, but you know what? I believe you guys should connect because you can help each other. Like, that's the kind of thing that I want, and that's why I wake up every day, not only, for my business, for my family, for my employees, but I also do it because I really, truly care about helping people. And I know at the end of the day, successful entrepreneurs and business owners, on some level, we all need to earn a living. We all are trying to support our family. We're all trying to grow. But at the end of the day, the good entrepreneurs, the good business professionals, they truly care about their customers and their clients and trying to help provide a service or help them, or they wouldn't be in business.
Yeah, especially at this level that you and I work at, where we're not providing $1 million solutions for enterprise level businesses. These
Correct.
Are people where we are seeing, we work on an individual level. Not saying it's not successful, because obviously it is. I mean, I think I've been pretty successful. It's clear that you have, but working in a one-to-one, working in a one-on-one situation, to me, requires that authenticity that you can afford, that is not always there when there is a startup that has to scale to 100 employees and is getting, a Series A funding and all sorts of these crazy business venture capital and all this stuff. But for me, it makes the payoff so much better, and it's so much more enjoyable just to see the human side of the business. And obviously, you see that because you manage people's money, but I see that too in the education space and being able to meet people. Although I don't get to see them as often in person these days, it is definitely special to get an email at the end of the semester saying that somebody has learned a lot and that they're now looking to go into a career in digital marketing or something. Those are the things that really they make it all worth it for me.
And that's great, Nick. That is something missing in so many people in the digital space. I've talked to so many different digital marketing companies over the last few years, and a lot of them are oh, it's just a money grab, or, oh, I just want to, let me run your Facebook ads or your Instagram ads. And yeah, that's great if you know what you're doing and you can get results. But you know what? There are so many out there, especially when COVID happened. Everyone all of a sudden knows how to be a digital marketer. Everyone knows what they're doing.
Yeah, it's becoming everybody's thing. Yeah.
Correct. So I give you a lot of credit because, like me, you're big on education. I think that's great, and I think that's lacking, and especially service as well. So I think those things together, there's unlimited potential for how big you want to grow and how big I want to grow. So I just want to say thanks, Nick, for taking your time and being on the show. What's the, leaving us with this, if any business or HR person or team member is listening and they want to reach out to you to talk more about your services, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Oh, yeah. So my website is digitaldetroitllc.com. You can just go there and you'll see the report that I mentioned that I did this past summer. There's all sorts of blog content, and there's a contact form there as well. You can just fill that out. And I'm usually pretty quick to respond. Or you can just look me up on LinkedIn. You can just search me, and I'll share this podcast once you publish it as well, so people will be able to listen to it there.
That sounds great. And I want to take a minute and thank our listeners for another episode of the Inspired Business Leaders Podcast. Again, as always, I'm your host, Nick Bour with Inspire Wealth. And I want to, again, thank you for your time, and we will hear and see everyone next time. Thanks so much, and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Inspired Business Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Inspire Wealth. To learn more about the topics mentioned on today's show, or to listen to past episodes, visit www.inspiredbusinessleaderspodcast.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.